And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, June 8th. Doubleheader this week. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Well,
Fantastic.
that's what I like to hear. Well, we tried Farron OS this week, and if you watch the Biddle Europe edition, you will probably hear some of the same things on this episode, but we're still going to go through it anyway. So, Zeb, did you try Farron OS, and what did you like? You are muted, sir.
Of course I am, because I said right at the beginning before you came on air, can everybody mute their mics. Hey, look, this is deja vu. I did this on the last episode as well. So yeah, Farron OS. I've been following Farron OS probably for about 3 years now, and I've been trying it on and off. And then when he said he was going to be doing a KDE version, I leapt all over it. So I haven't got it installed at the moment because I'm still trying to get this main machine settled down and configured the way I like it. But I used it in the week, and it's great. It's an XFCE with all the Farron goodness of his theming and usability and extra bits and pieces that he puts in there, thrown in. The only small little niggles I've got, and they are really small little niggles because they're 30-second fixes. Nano isn't there out of the box, and I think that might be just a slight oversight. And neither is Snaps available out of the box. So if he does those two things, then I think he's going to have an absolutely awesome distro. I've logged a couple of bugs with him, or rather, I've told him via various streams of a couple of things that have gone wrong, and he's kindly logged the bugs for me because he's seen me on here long enough to know that me and bug logging it's not something that occurs in the same statement.
Right.
So he's trying to get Telegram fixed because at the moment that doesn't work. But over the last 4 or 5 months, the thing I like about Farron is you'll mention something, he'll go away and then he'll come and fix it. And then he'll tell you, okay, do an update. I've done that. So it's quite astonishing the speed at which he can turn things around. It is still only alpha/beta, but he's done some amazing things with the distro and the theming. He's got this little one-stop theming shop where you click one button, wait about 10-15 seconds, and boom, the whole displays have changed. Where the panels go, what they look like, how they configure. And then there's another little box that pops up and it says, oh, and would you also like to configure these while you're at it? And you click yes. And I couldn't find any theming issues. But as we talked about in the last show, I'm the last person to ask about theming because as long as things work when they're meant to work, I don't notice the pixel that's out of place, and I don't notice oddities like some of the guys do and ladies do in here.
I might notice it.
I didn't look at you when I said that, did I?
I was.
Yeah.
I know you were.
So for me, Farron gets a big double thumbs up because it's one of those distros, even though it's in beta, you can put it on there, you can install it. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, you come up to the boot menu when you first put the USB in, and it's got Nate's one that he doesn't like. Would you like to go to the desktop? But it's also got, would you like to go to the desktop with no mode set? So no more fiddling about with having to get your graphics card set up. It's just boom, straight in there. So for me, yeah, Farron gets a big double thumbs up. Really, really enjoyed it.
Well, I have to agree. I installed it on the test machine, and people love Linux Mint, and for good reasons. But I think what Farron does is it takes Linux Mint Cinnamon and takes it a step further for people who want to tweak their system, want to customize it. And the theme switcher is absolutely awesome. And we had talked about it in length of on the last episode where, the theme switcher could be viewed as subjective to the person making the distro. But I think what the theme switcher does is it gives a person a starting point for theming their system. They may not know, like for me, and I'll use me again as an example. I am not an artist, and I cannot create anything because it just never works out and never looks good. Now, I can look at a theme and tell you what's wrong with it. I can tell you what would look better, but I can't create something from nothing. And that's where this theme switcher allows you to start out and then maybe tweak one thing and you're done. And I think other distros ought to adopt the theme switcher. So I think Farron's doing a great job. Peter, what do you think?
Okay, in BDLL Europe, I gave my story of how I installed the original Farron OS with a Cinnamon desktop. Then I was told about the KDE version called Farron Next. That's a bad name because Zeb's kind of claimed that next name.
Agreed.
So I put on Farron Next onto my laptop, installed fine. After BDLL Europe, I was telling the guys that everything has installed, the drivers installed. I've installed some software since then. It's working well, so I really enjoy it. It's a really nice KDE version. Apparently, it's based upon Ubuntu Core and KDE added onto it, but it works really well. I like it.
Awesome. I did have one issue with Farron OS, and that was installing it. And I tried to do the clean install, and it had some type of error of not being able to install the system because of partitioning issues. And that is, I believe, a known bug.
I had that as well on my desktop, yes.
Yep. And they're working on that. And as a matter of fact, one of the guys on Twitter, can't remember who it was, but one of the guys on Twitter posted that they had the exact same problem. So I suggested doing the G-parted thing beforehand because that's what I did to get around it. I partitioned whatever I needed to on the drives and then installed Farron, and it worked perfect. So,
But is that a Farron problem or a Calamares installer problem?
It's a Calamares problem, and it's the version that Farron is using, I think. It's we use the same installer in Ubuntu, and we haven't moved to that version yet because
issues.
Yeah, there's issues. There's other things that it's dependent on that aren't in the Ubuntu repositories yet, so that's why we haven't moved.
All right, Dan, what did you think of Farron?
I liked it. I tried the next version a little while back. I didn't do that for this challenge. I did the regular Farron Cinnamon, and I'm not normally a Cinnamon guy, but Farron puts a lot of the bits and bobs in there that make it very good. It's got some really nice theming to it. It's not your granddad's Linux Mint.
Right.
It's got some good tweaks to it. He adds some other things in there too, like you said, the theme switcher. That's pretty nifty. He's using Calamares, which is really nice. It's a very easy to use installer, and I think people really enjoy it. One issue, it's a teeny tiny issue, and with Calamares, I installed it in a VM as well, and it wanted to use swap partition. And so I gave the VM like 8 gig of RAM. So it wanted to make a swap partition that was 8 gig, which is that's a lot. You don't need that for a VM for sure. I know there's a way to turn on the option in Calamares so that you have a little drop-down box so you can pick whether you want a small swap partition or no swap partition at all if you really want to, or you can make it big enough so that you can, suspend if you were doing it on a laptop or something. So Maybe that's just something he might want to add later, and it's just a teeny tiny little tweak. It's not really a bug per se, but just something I noticed. Other than that, it just runs really well. It's really smooth. Very nice OS, and the same thing with Next when I tried that before. Really like that. He pulls in some bits and bobs from everywhere, and he just makes it work. So I think it's cool.
Well, I think you hit it on the head there, Dan. It's not just theming; it's bits and pieces of all kinds of different things. Pantheon Mail, for example, as the default email, which is absolutely awesome. The welcome screen is a fork of the Ubuntu Budgie welcome screen.
Yeah, that's really nice.
All these little bits and pieces that he puts in from maybe not the same distro, and that may turn people off. It may turn people on. I don't know, but I think that what he's doing is putting the best of the best in there. So,
yeah, and he pulls it together, and it has a smooth flow to it. It's not like it's out of place. So I guess that's the thing that's really nice.
Right. Vash, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Did you get to try Farron OS?
I did not this week, but I am thinking that next week I'll be back to normal. So hopefully I'll get to check out this week's, and I may even try to go back and try out Farron.
All right.
Okay, that sounds good. Tyler, I know you've been busy with various fests around the country, but have you had a chance to try out Farron at all?
No, I have not. It's along with the fest and overtime, and was supposed to move this week, but that didn't happen.
Sounds like you're going to be a busy bee coming up then if you've got moving to do.
Yep. And Southeast Linux Fest.
Yeah.
Really? When's that?
Well, let me tell you, Zeb. Let me get my counter out, and I will tell you it is exactly 5 days, 10 hours, 47 minutes, and 11 seconds from now.
Wow. Well, it's actually less than 99 hours until I board the plane.
Yeah.
So this is getting scary.
It is.
99 hours.
I love it.
And I'm going to be in America. Awesome. Awesome. Anyway, back to the wonderful Farron OS. Barbara, did you try it, my dear?
Okay. No, I didn't get a chance. I got caught up in doing a bunch of other stuff and I didn't get to. I did notice though that like whenever during the week he kept saying another version. I thought that was really cool that he would fix stuff and then create another ISO for everybody. And I'm waiting, and I do want to try it because it seems like everybody really liked it. So,
Cool.
So in fact, the one I did download was already outdated before I even would have had a chance to use it.
Well, let's just say that for being a one-person show,
it's amazing.
He puts so much hard work and effort into it, including responding to people and their issues and everything. It is amazing, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, it really is quite amazing, and I just didn't get a chance, but I am going to try it at some point.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, and I forgot to mention it in my little remit, for one so young.
Yes.
He started off Farron OS when he was 15.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think he's only just turned 18 or something. So,
I'd like to add a comment there too. Some of the distros that we try are that we really like as a group are from some of the smallest teams that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Gnome. Did you try Farron OS, Adam?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I did. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought thought the theming was pretty good. I preferred the dark theme slightly better than the light theme. But the desktop looked amazing. I liked the menus that he used. I liked how actually fast it was. I used the Farron OS Next, the one based on KDE, and it was pretty quick. I was doing it in a VMware virtual machine, and I didn't have any problems at all. I could even do things like watching YouTube in like 4K and all that in the virtual machine. I was actually really impressed. And I liked his browser palette that he had for choosing which web browser you wanted to install. and I ended up with like 4 different web browsers because of it. But yeah, overall, I think he's done a really good job. And of course, the people who's helped him out with bug reports as well, and any kind of help that people have given to him. I think I'm gonna keep it around because I'd like to see where it goes from where it's at. He's using my install had Nemo by default, but I saw something in Telegram he posted about some improvements he made to Dolphin, so I installed Dolphin, and much better experience than Nemo. But yeah, I actually enjoyed the distro quite a bit. I will be keeping that one around.
Excellent. And to go back on to Barbara's point that he's being very proactive and actually upgrading new ISOs. If you've already got one installed, you don't need to bother because it was also update. But if you're going in from fresh, then yes, you can get all the bug fixes used immediately. So yeah, that's looking good. The voice, that is Tony. Are you there, my friend?
I hope so.
Little bit low.
Little bit low.
But you are there.
Yes, you are there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm probably speaking a bit quieter because it's 2:15 in the morning here.
What are you doing up?
I don't really know. I think it's something to do with something called BDLL, but I don't really know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty good, though.
Yeah. So did you try Ferrin, Tony?
Sorry?
Did you try Ferrin?
Yes. In the Europe edition, I talked about cinnamon, and I liked it. And in between that and this, I've installed the next version with the KDE.
Nice.
And I'm very impressed with that. If Ferrin was looking for a decision on which one to go with, I would say if you've got to drop one of them and develop one of them, then this is the one to stick with because it's slick. The only problems I had with it was there were 1 or 2 issues with the installer where some of the click the box for what you're doing next didn't show properly, and then all of a sudden it would. But you could get round it. You could see what you're supposed to be doing. But once it was installed and updated, as you can tell, it works and everything seems to be fine. So it's another thumbs up for Ferrin.
Nice.
All right. We're going to skip Eris. Just skip right over him. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did you try Ferrin OS?
Briefly, yes. The reason it was brief is because I went and tried the ISO in a virtual machine, and I was using the next version. So it took a little bit to boot up, but that's fine. I get in there and I'm playing around with it to try to get configured the way I like, and all of a sudden the screen went completely black on me, and it was just showing a list of systemd services, and I had no idea what was going on. And after a couple minutes, it dropped me at the login screen. Now, I wasn't entirely sure what the default password is, but after like 2 or 3 tries, I got in. For those who don't know, there is no default password. You just hit enter and it goes. So I think it looped back to the login screen and I got in eventually, but it gave me an error saying that I think it was KWin service or something else, KDE related, was unable to run or something like that. But I was eventually able to get in. But after all that, I wasn't even going to bother installing it because with those 2 errors, it was also being kind of slow. And granted, the VM only had 2 gigabytes of RAM, and that tends to choke a lot of operating systems no matter what you're running these days. So it could have just been the virtual machine settings. But those are 2 things that I did have issues with. I did tell the developer behind it about those bugs, and I think he's working on them. I haven't gone and checked yet. The only bug, other than those 2 things, which is a very minor niggle, in the theming and layout menu, if you go to the Unity theming and do the Unity layout, there's a very small gap between Latte Dock on the left and the bar on the top. It's a very, very small gap. So if that could be adjusted, it would look a million times better already, which it is little, but yeah. After all that, I wasn't even going to bother installing it in the virtual machine. So it's not a bad operating system. Overall, I do like Farron OS, especially in that Unity layout. Playing around with it, if you loved Unity, you will love the Unity layout in Farron OS because it looks a lot better than that full screen menu did in Unity. But those little niggles and the fact that I have a distaste for KDE made me go next.
You should have probably tried the cinnamon version.
I feel like if I did try the cinnamon version, that I would have liked it much better.
Yeah. But, I think it's pretty ridiculous, Thomas, that you would be concerned about a pixel or two.
Well, it was more like 5 or 6. But otherwise, it did look and work fairly well. It's just with the settings it had, it did seem a little bit slow, and there was a bug here and there. And in his defense, the next version is more beta, so not too much trashing on him. It's just
totally
I don't like
superficial of you.
I don't like running beta operating systems. I'll run beta apps.
Right.
You don't like running beta operating systems, says the guy who makes an operating system it's in beta a lot of the time, and you're like, huh? What?
Thank you.
You're not wrong. Oops. You're not wrong.
Michael, why do you got to disturb everything with facts?
I'm sorry. I will never again for the next 30 seconds.
Michael, you're not even going to make it 30 seconds, bud.
Nah.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be a record.
Yep.
Remember, he lost his flash.
All right, Chris, did you get to try Farron OS?
You're muted, Chris. Can't hear you, mate.
You're either muted or on the wrong audio because you don't look like you're muted, but. All right.
While he figures that out, I'd like to point
go ahead.
Here in solidarity.
Uh-huh.
The only other person repping a hat today.
I'll just go off the camera.
No, you're good. You're good.
You're good now.
Okay, yeah, I'm just using the camera mic instead of the ones that I had set up a couple weeks ago. Anyway, no, I was not able to get it installed. It kept coming up. Create the partitions. I get everything labeled. It would install, reboot, and it would say no boot partition available, or boot no boot valid or valid boot device, something like that. So right now I'm going back. I'm trying to install Fedora on it. If I can get Fedora installed, then it's something that I was doing on that. Fedora was complaining with gparted that I need to create a BIOS boot partition, a 1 megabyte BIOS boot partition. That may be what was going on, is the fact that with all the UEFI stuff coming in, that my old and decrepit hardware is finally showing its age to the point where it won't boot with the modern stuff. But anyway, Tyler, just let you know, hey, we had a VE session today, and we had all 3 people pass. So good luck on it.
Thank you.
Anyway, but when I was running it in the live version, I was very impressed with how crisp the graphics looked. I didn't really test a whole lot or be able to experience a whole lot, but I mean, the picture of that balloon just kind of popped right off the screen. It looked really nice. So if I can figure out the partitioning problem, then I'd be more than likely to try it out and see what it's about.
Well, like I said, the partitioning problem is an issue. You would just have to do your partitions ahead of time. So,
yeah.
All right, Dave, how are you?
I'm alive.
Hey,
Except for that, I'm fine.
That's a plus, dude. If you're alive, you're above ground. That's good.
Depends upon your perspective.
Yes, exactly. Did you try Farron OS, brother?
I was not able to get into it this time. I've used it in the past. I've always really enjoyed it. I've like Zeb, I've followed Farron for a couple of years now, and I've installed it several times and always enjoyed it. This time, I grabbed the NVIDIA version that he has on SourceForge. The live version was beautiful. Like Chris said, it installed right away, but when I went to reboot it, I got something that I have never gotten before in Linux. It was a blue screen, and it said shim for UEFI key management. Hit any button for muck something or other. And down in the corner, it said booting in, and it started counting down. So I let it count down, and it dropped to a grub boot command line.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I was just about to say that's to do with secure boot and the fact that when you install proprietary drivers, you have to provide a password. But even providing the password, I've never seen it ask for the password once it boots. Mine did that, but it went straight into the screen. And I've seen that before on OpenSUSE. It's just something to do with secure boot. And I don't know what the MOK thing is, but it's that secure boot annoyance.
Okay, so I should grab the non-NVIDIA version and just put in the NVIDIA drivers afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I will do that because like I said, I keep going back to Farron every 6 months or so, and I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved it. Like everybody else says, he works incredibly hard. I usually find him, when I'm watching English Bob, his videos, and Farron's usually popping into those chats all the time. So those are the times I've been honored to interact with him. But I have always greatly appreciated the work he has done and greatly enjoyed his distros.
Agreed. Colin, what's going on?
I'm not, trying Linux always. Yes, I've been following Farron for quite a long time, and I do quite often do things for him, upload some videos now and then, and test things out for him every now and then. So I quite like the things that he does. I was trying the Next. I'm really interested in the Next, and he's put one of the best file managers in there, Nemo. Rocco, just thought I'd let you know.
I said in Biddle Europe that it's an awesome world when Farron OS has two distros and has the two best file managers in the planet on either one.
So, I did put on Telegram about the installing and doing with the G-parted very early last week, just in case people needed to know that, because I experienced the same thing before we even did the challenge. So I knew that was an issue, but it installed fine for me. So I'm not normally a KDE guy or Plasma, but I quite like his Next. It's like Tony said, it's slick. Everything seems to work pretty good. I haven't had really any crashes. I only had the network issue, which he helped me sort out during the week. Now, one thing I want to know about Plasma, I don't know, Michael's here, I think. I don't know if he knows anything about Latte Dock, but I had the same problem with Kubuntu. Once you start Latte Dock and put a dock on there, I can't get rid of it. What if you want to try it, if you can add something, why can't you remove it? I cannot remove Latte Dock. All I can do is remove all the launchers from it, and then it will turn into a little tiny square and you hide it somewhere. But I can't. Why can't you remove Latte Dock?
You can totally remove Latte Dock. I don't know what kind of issue you're having, but there's an option that you can close the process of editing. You go into the preferences, and there's an option to delete the entire dock from that preferences setting.
No, I didn't see it. I'll I'll have a look.
If you,
I'll
he
just
is right. If you
make-
go and right click on the dock panel settings, at the bottom it'll say remove dock.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
All right. I'll have a look at that. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'll
Latte
try
Doc's
that
got
again.
some issues, but that's not one of them.
All right. So I'm the issue then. Is that right?
No, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just
You
saying
can
there's.
say that because I think I'm the issue. I must.
It's weird that you have to go into preferences in order to find the removal thing. There should just be a right click on the dock and then you can do it. That's a fair.
That's right.
There's a fair point there.
Mike
And
is
I think
just
there
saying
should be a
not between the seat and the keyboard.
pep deck.
Not saying that.
I think there should be a setting somewhere though that you should be able to turn off Latte Dock from starting up and not have to remove the dock.
There is a setting for that,
But it doesn't work. But it doesn't work. Yes.
No, it doesn't work. Yeah.
You can do that inside of the system settings for the auto start.
Isn't there some kind of a
Yeah.
startup?
Yes.
That startup type.
But even
thing,
if
and
you
start
uncheck
clicking?
Latte Dock
Yeah.
from that area, it still starts up.
It still starts up.
Is
That's
it
right.
also being checked somewhere in one of the theme settings that it's like show dock at?
I don't
I've-
know.
That
I've
could be where
gone
the
into
problem's
just
coming in.
about- I've gone deep into the settings
Deep,
that I
deep.
could. I went deep and couldn't
Down under
God,
deep.
down under deep. I unchecked everything and it still starts up. But I can understand on Ferron Next because he's using that for some of his layouts, so that needs to start up probably. But I did the same thing on Kubuntu and could not stop it from starting.
Colin even removed Plasma altogether, and Latte Dock still started up. It's the only thing he could see was Latte Dock, but it's
That's just called consistency. It might be persistence.
Anyway, I like the fact he's got the browser manager and he's got about 8 browsers on his browser manager, so that's pretty awesome. So there's a lot of choices there as well, which I quite like. The other thing I'm having, same thing, Kubuntu or Ferron Next, is with my Optimus Video NVIDIA card, animations are hanging, especially present windows and dragging to full screen a window. So I think that must be my Optimus card. And the other thing I thought I would try was creating my own Unity layout. So I did that. I got creative, Rocco. I created my own Unity
That's
layout.
awesome, dude.
And that was pretty cool. And I thought I want to save this, but I didn't know how. I didn't even know if you could save it in Plasma.
Yes, you
so
can.
I did a search on Google and I found this guy called Big Daddy Linux.
He has a video on how to save the
And
layouts.
he's got an awesome video on how to save the layout. So I saved the layout only local. I didn't upload it or anything, but I changed the layouts and then went back to mine. And yes, I did find there was a couple of pixels out on the center panel that I did, because I remember Zeb talking about as a panel here, panel there, put your time in the middle and it doesn't go anywhere.
You
I
guys are
think that- I
so
don't know.
superficial. I mean, really, just a couple pixels
Well,
off and you're ready to
Just a
complain.
couple, yep. I could see it. There was a slight darkness in there, and I thought, Rocco would not be happy with that.
You followed his guide. That's why.
Pretty much.
But it came out pretty good. I was pretty happy. They had the global menu happening and everything, so it looks pretty awesome. Runs pretty awesome. Just this present windows and hanging animations is a problem with my card, but it might run well on my main system, I must say. But
see,
I'm
Colin,
liking
you
Ferron.
should have uploaded that layout so other people could enjoy it, because I'm sure there's other people looking for a Unity layout, even though they have a couple on there.
You made it look easy, Rocco, but I didn't quite understand the finish of it, so I'm going to go back to that and see if I can sort of work that out. So,
Well, just watch Rocco's video on it, and you'll be fine.
I did, but I think I don't know whether I was meant to put all the emails and stuff in, and you just put me just for the video. I don't know, but I don't know whether you're meant to put proper emails and stuff in.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
meant
know.
to put proper emails in there. And stuff.
Okay, so I don't. I'm not quite sure how you upload it. I didn't work that bit out.
Should watch the video on it, Colin.
Well, I did, but yeah, need to go back and watch it again, I suppose. So I'll be looking for you this week, Rocco. Look out, I'll be stalking you during the week.
Do it.
I'm loving Ferron Next. It's an awesome distro, and I think it's based on Ubuntu. There's less, what can you say, less things in between. bases of base of a base sort of thing. So I think it's pretty good. QT seems to be, more very flexible for what he wants to do as well. So I think he's doing an awesome job.
Is this Farron based on Ubuntu specifically, or is it based on Kubuntu?
It's based on Kubuntu.
Kubuntu, is it?
I think what he said in the YouTube chat on the European edition is he starts with an Ubuntu minimal base and then pulls in packages from the Neon repos to get the latest Plasma.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
That's the next version. I think the
Right.
stable version
the
is
cinnamon version is a fork of Mint.
Mint. Yeah.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much indeed, Colin. Dark One, the man with hair that's down under. What happened there?
I figured I would join Dan with the reflection. Yeah.
I need my sunglasses. You guys are so bright.
I did get finally a chance to try Farron next. I like what Farron's doing. The default theming and all that stuff looks great. For me, it's Plasma, so you kind of make it what you want. I do like the theme switcher. Like Colin said, I'm more of a Unity guy, so I enjoy the fact that it's literally almost like the Mutiny, setting up for the Mutiny theme in Mate as far as simplicity. I like the icons. I like the defaults. I didn't have any issues installing it, so that's really all I got to say. I think it's a interesting take with the theme switcher and all the various layouts that you can do with it. I think it's basically what Zorin OS tries to be and does it with Plasma instead.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. Nate, good evening.
Good evening.
Did you try it, Farron?
Yes, of course. I absolutely did. And so I meant to nab the Plasma version, and instead I snagged the Cinnamon version. But instead of, but in keeping true to my own form, I just went with it. So I do want to start out saying I think Cinnamon is a fantastic desktop. I think that it looks really nice. It's kind of like it's like a I know it's GNOME Shell based, or it's pulled from GNOME Shell. Someone correct me if I'm
Technically, Cinnamon is based on GNOME. Yeah.
Okay, so it's encumbered with all the GNOME problems. But anyway, so outside of that,
it doesn't have any of the ridiculously current ones, but
Oh well, but the single thread.
It does have the single thread problem because that was just a GNOME 3 problem in general. So they forked it in GNOME 3.6, I think.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so it does seem to run very nicely, and I like how it seems like it's like Cinnamon seems to have a lot of those like GNOME, the GNOME polish, without the GNOME look. It has a nice. It's kind of got that the more comfortable interface of working with a computer. The Windows paradigm, as it were. So I like that, and I think I like the theming that Farron does. So everyone's covered it already. The theming's great. That's actually I think is the key selling point for me on it. I think next the and also covered by somebody else, the browser selector, the browser manager, that I thought was a fantastic tool. I've never seen that anyplace else. Does somebody else do that? And he pulled that, or did he create that? Does anybody know?
What is it?
The browser chooser.
That is the browser ballot from Ubuntu Budgie, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
There is one Budgie.
There's other distros that have them, but I don't think they have as many. I've never seen them.
Okay, well, I like that. I thought that was a great touch. As far as the default applications go, I don't really care about that. I install what I want, and I can install whatever I want because it's based on all the Ubuntu's. I did have a little bit of an issue with it in VM. I'll call that a problem with Vert Manager and not a problem with Farron. But I kept going into fallback mode on the Cinnamon did, so not a big deal. So I all in all, I mean, there's not a whole lot I don't like about it, except it is GTK for being Cinnamon. I'm not a fan of that. And then it doesn't have zipper for the package manager. So again, that's a nitpick issue. But in testing all these Linux distributions, I really like looking and seeing how different developers or different packagers how they like to express what they think is the right desktop. And I really enjoyed the flavor that Farron provided there. And everything was easy to install. It was very, very welcoming, very easy to, very approachable, I could say. And so I really appreciated that. Is it enough for me to switch from OpenSUSE? No, but it was really good experience. So I did enjoy it.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. Kevin, you're up. And did you try Farron?
Not this week. It is nice to see you all, though. Hi.
For the first time, Kevin. It's awesome.
No, I didn't have a chance to try Farron, but with what everyone's been saying, I'm really gonna have to check it out. I know that on my two systems, I run Fedora, but I use a cinnamon flavor on my laptop and KDE Plasma on my desktop. So two really good choices, in my opinion. I'll have to give that a look.
Cool. Nice. Thank you very much indeed. Scott, welcome.
Howdy.
Hi.
Yeah, I did get Farron downloaded. Now I've used Farron before, older versions, and they didn't always work so great. Obviously, in development, but I started mine up in a VM, and it immediately went into software rendering mode, which I didn't like. So I thought, well, okay, it's an issue because it's not on hardware. So I went to my 2005 HP laptop and installed it there, and again, software rendering mode. I've not had that with any other OSs I've tried in VMs or on my older hardware. So the only thing I can think of is being the only one of two, tipping my hat to Michael for Team Red. I have a feeling it's probably an AMD issue. I'm not so certain about that. I just can't pin it down because I did it on hard metal and I did it in a VM, and both did the same thing.
Did it to me on NVIDIA hardware, so it's not just AMD.
Okay, so it's hard to say where that issue is originating from. But Charlie Brown mentioned in chat earlier when the show began, which was, I thought, a pretty good idea. I don't know how hard it is to implement it, but just to launch in VGA mode before any AMD or NVIDIA drivers are used, and give the user the option to load either one.
Yeah, in Farron Next, you have the option to go no mode set, which is what I think that's what the VGA mode is. But that's only on Next. I don't know if that's on the Calamara's version. I've not tried it for a while.
Right. And I have to agree with Dan on this swap issue, because I wasn't even offered a choice of the size of the swap, and it wanted to start a 20 gigabyte swap partition for me. I don't even use swap. I've got 32 gigs of RAM. So I don't even need it, but I want the option not to be able to use it if it's possible. That being said, because of those issues, I just went. However, after that, I'm curious, because I wanted to see what kind of development has been going on with it, because I do think it's a good OS. So I just went rummaging around YouTube and taking a look at reviews of the new Farron OS 1904, I think it is. Rocco, do you know PCTLC? Does he come in here?
That would be Colin.
Okay, Colin. All right. So I saw your review on that on YouTube. I thought that was good, but also took a look at Reba Linux and Linux Lounge. Everybody had great reviews of it, and I think it is a really, really well-developed OS. It's kind of like ordering coffee for me. It's a flat white, but lots of room to theme. And like Rocco, you mentioned, the theming is just made easy. I love that aspect of it. So if I could get it working on any of my hardware, I'd probably have that as my second.
It's funny because the last couple of weeks, all of the distros we've tried, I have put on the test machine, and each week I am disappointed that I have to get rid of that distro and try the next one. But each one that we try is just as awesome, and this is no exception. Farron OS is running absolutely awesome on my machine. I know some of the people have said in the past that it was sluggish, but it is running just as fast as any other distro on this machine. So
nice. All right, then, Scott. Well, I look forward to hearing your comments if you do ever get it installed properly, because your little Next plaque, that's the name of Farron's OS, Farron Next. So that was quite good.
I will be working on that, see what we can do with it, because I'm pretty intrigued by it. It's got great default applications too. There's just it's looking really good. And as far as a new OS for anybody coming to Linux, I don't think they'd have too many problems with it, or at least no challenges they couldn't easily overcome and really enjoy it.
Cool, nice.
All right, Joe, what's going on, man?
Well, to prove my point, I still have it on here. That's the next one.
Yep.
As I mentioned in Europe today, I didn't give it a fair chance. I played with it on VM briefly, and it didn't like it. I personally think if something isn't going to work well in a VM, and you know that, like he's got a disclaimer, it runs real slow, or whatever, I think you should just not have it at all, or at least say this, is not to be tested on a VM. It should be on real hardware. That being said, I spent a couple of hours on this today, so I've got a little bit of a list. I'll go through a few things.
Well, before you go any further, Joe, I have to say that I kind of disagree with the fact that you shouldn't do it on a VM. I think you should do it with reservations and maybe a qualifier to say that it's probably not meant for a VM. But putting it on a VM is a really good test for any distro. So
if it's the only thing you do,
whatever you do, I think it should, rather than just say it runs slow, just say it's like you said, Rocco, maybe rewording it. It's not meant for a VM, and you could have potential issues with it or whatever.
Right.
You're trying to test.
Or
the thing is if you have somebody that
never mentioned performance.
Yeah, like we have some familiarity on how to get around these things and not really judge, but somebody that's new that might want to try it could be turned off very easily, and that would be my concern.
All right, carry on, sir.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier too, it depends on hardware. And this Dell laptop I have, I don't like the touchpad on it as it is. But it seemed like when I don't use a dedicated mouse, and I played with it for a good couple of hours by itself on my lap. The touchpad, there were a lot of features that seemed like right-click didn't want to work and things like that. I do realize, again, take what I'm saying at a grain of salt, because I know that this is still experimental, and a lot of the bugs have to be worked out of it. I think it's beautiful. I think the welcome screen is phenomenal. I really think that it's polished. I do like the theme changer. It seems a little, to me, some of it seems a little fragmented from what I'm used to. Like on most distros, when you click on look and feel, everything's kind of tabbed up there where you can change maybe your background or your fonts or different things, where this is just that. And I'm kind of looking for that because that's what I'm used to. So I think this is something that, when I say grain of salt, you're going to have to spend more time than a couple of hours to really get the feel for it. I think it's a phenomenal distro. I really do. And I can see the potential for this to go real places. Some of the themes had drop shadows in them. I'm not a big drop shadow fan. I'm talking about it under the fonts, because it makes the fonts hard to see for these old eyes too, even with glasses. The one thing I noticed now when I first booted up while I was waiting for you guys is I went to click on look and feel, and a code window came up on more than one time, and then finally the proper window came up. So that might be still some of the little buggy issues got to get worked out of it. With the welcome screen, or the welcome menu with the different things in there's an indicator, like when you're going to install like restricted extras. I clicked on that, and how normally it'll show some kind of action being done, and it didn't seem like it was doing it. I kept clicking it, and then all of a sudden the button turned red to remove, meaning that it had installed. So it didn't show me what it was doing, so I wasn't sure if it was doing it. I did notice in different areas too that I would go to click to close something out. Like even when you boot it up, there's that, talking about the bugs menu, the close button doesn't work, but yet the X would. to close that out. So those are just little, again, like you guys say, niggles or whatever that I think are the little things he's going to have to be working out throughout this thing. The installer, I think, worked really well. I commented earlier about it that I thought, much like Salient, where it seemed like it was slow or would hang, when in fact it was doing its install. If you watch the files versus the progress bar, then because I mentioned that today, no sooner I said it, it went zip, it went right across. It literally went like that, and boom, it was in. So it's just a little patience game. It seemed like then after I had to reboot it, it hung and nothing happened. So then I hard shut down and rebooted it, and it's been fine ever since that way. So I'm not going to hit every single point here because, again, a lot of it is just little stuff that I realize has got to be worked out. But I do like a lot of what he's got going on here. The right click, like I said, for me with the configure desktop, it was like a blank box that just appeared. It was a little tiny box, and I expanded it, and there was nothing in it. So again, I'm not going to go through all of this because I don't think it's fair in the sense that it's still an early version. I do want to look at Cinnamon, though, being that was what I was trying in the VM. I'd like to see that on real hardware. I think he's doing a great job. If it would help him for me to just put this little short list, put it into a short list and maybe send it to him and say, I don't know if these are bugs or not, or if it's my hardware or whatever, because this is a newer laptop. It's about a year old. But again, I don't like the way the touchpad works on it. I don't know how well the touchpad works on here. The touchscreen works. I'm able to do that and touch things on here, and it does seem to respond real well. The other thing I couldn't figure out on here is up in the Latte dock, it's 24-hour. And I didn't know, if you highlight over it, it'll show, the 12-hour clock, it seems like, but yet you can't change it to see it all the time. I like a 12-hour clock. Little things like that. So it's a lot of little things, but I don't think it's anything so horrible.
That's a Latte dock setting, that clock. So you'd have to go and find the settings to change it in Latte dock, but you can make it 24-hour or 12-hour, whichever you want.
Okay. Yeah, I've tried clicking on it. I've tried going into clock settings, and I just can't find anything in there. So that might be, again, my being unfamiliar with Latte dock. I'm not super familiar with that. So other than that, I mean, it's the other thing confused me. One last thing was when I was trying to change the themes, as even as we were sitting on here now, he's got like a checkbox to have all these different things apply. And if you don't realize or remember to do that, it's like, it almost seems like they get confused. I went to do Unity and I wound up showing Unity over the top of the bottom panel, so it's, I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or if it's still, that's another little bug in it or something. So, but I don't want to go on and take up more time, but that's the gist of it. I really do like it, and I think he's doing a great job.
Yep. All right, Big Pod. How are you?
I'm okay.
Before you start, Big Pod, single click for the win. All right, go ahead.
No. I don't have much to say. It did somewhat lag for me. I don't know what it was. It probably couldn't be since it was in VM, but I did give it 4 cores and 8 gigs of RAM, so it still lagged, so I don't know what it was. But otherwise, I had a couple of problems with it. First of all, I don't like the default being Vivaldi. That's one thing I don't like. But otherwise, just another Ubuntu base. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Did you try the Calamaris or the KDE version?
I tried
not Calamaris, Cinnamon.
I tried the Cinnamon and it works. Basically, Mint, basically Ubuntu. Works. What can I say otherwise?
All right. Hey, if that's your opinion, brother, that's it. Bill, how are you? Bill, are you there, sir?
I wish I could be smart enough to hit the button that lets me talk.
It's okay.
Okay. That makes me feel smart. Like we said on the Europe edition, I use the standard Farron Cinnamon version, and there's a lot of polish that's gone into Cinnamon. with what he has done. And a lot of that polish is in the theming, the backgrounds, and the look and feel. I spent a little time after I went out and did a bunch of yard work right before we got on here, looking through a bunch of the backgrounds that he has available. And he's done a lot of work. And we mentioned what Silent did with Salient. There's like, to me, there's a lot of parallels. Mint is an interesting distro because not distro, I guess DE, people really either like it or really, really hate it. And I don't really quite understand why. But, I mean, there is a lot of good stuff here. I think we talked about it earlier. He is using, a very nice welcome screen, a lot of information. The browser manager, which is, what Budgie's using and what Mate's using. This is really nice. And the fact that he is a young man that's doing this by himself, it's absolutely incredible.
Yep. We always talk about it. Okay, so one of the bigger distributions comes out with a new release, and we talk about how much work is involved, and people working long hours for their own time, basically. And then you boil that down to one person doing two different distros, and not just adding a theme and putting it out there, but we're talking some major work involved here. And it is amazing how much work he is able to get done.
One of the things that I think is unfair is we had it a couple weeks ago. We were talking about, should we get rid of these distros, and is this distro just a theme thrown on another distro? Farron is not just a theme thrown on KDE or
right.
Mint. And there's a lot of kudos to go out to him for doing this. That's pretty much what I have.
All right, Steve.
Good evening. How do I sound? I got a new microphone today.
Sound good.
All right. Do I sound like Silent?
Not quite. Nobody can sound like Silent, dude. I mean, Tony comes as a close
time.
Second to sounding like Silent, but no.
All right, it's getting returned. No,
Steve, you sound as good as I do.
Oh God. The only problem that I had was, as Peter had mentioned earlier, through the install. I couldn't figure it out at first, so I just partitioned. It's the first time I ever had to do that. But as we all have now heard, it's not so much, Farron's problem. Beautiful. I use a Cinnamon. Beautiful desktop. I mean, the theming, just wow. He put a lot of work into it. The theme switcher is amazing. I just did mostly surfing during the week. I installed like Chromium. I did notice that off the startup screen that the link to the software center told me that there was no software center installed. But yet, if you go through the menu, you can get to the software center. So that was a little niggle, not a big thing. But yeah, wow. I'm very impressed. Very beautiful desktop. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful setup.
All right. Well, thanks very much indeed, Steve. Sounds pretty good. Dolphin, welcome. Hi.
Where have you been, man?
I've been out and about. I'll tell you what, 8 o'clock for a show is great for all you like guys who come from all, it's nice to have an earlier day, but around here, the day ain't over yet at 8 o'clock. So it's still moving. There's a lot going on. We've had with one kid come home from college. We had the other kid doing band concerts and all sorts of other things, tennis practice. I mean, it's just been crazy. The latest obsession is flying a remote control aircraft. However, it's a virtual remote control aircraft, if you can wrap your head around that. It's not a real airplane. It's a virtual remote control aircraft. But I got this great big controller. It's like this big. It's just humongous, and it's got 20,000 buttons and levers on it. And I feel a lot better about myself hitting the space bar to reset the plane after the wings fly off than, spending $4,000 on an airplane or something. I don't know how much it cost, but my wife was beautiful. She got me this thing, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. But That doesn't mean I didn't try Farron OS out, because Farron gives me a lot of crap on YouTube and Telegram and everywhere else about supposed MX hype machine and MX bots working on stuff. And you know what? He's a punk kid, and that's kind of my nickname for him around here, the punk kid. But you know what? He's a good guy, and his OS build here is pretty fun to use. I got the cinnamon version like Nate did, but I was a little unfair to Farron. I put it on this laptop. This is one of the junkers. This is the laptop that we built 64 when we started working on UEFI stuff. I was going to try out everything, and I couldn't because it took me so long to get it installed on this thing, because this is a UEFI only laptop. And to all you distro guys out there who think it's really cool to require me to have an internet connection before I can install on UEFI only system, I'm going to box your ears, because that is the most annoying thing in the world to go through 10 minutes, 15 minutes of file copy and then get to the UEFI installation for Grub and have it fail because I don't have an internet connection. I hate that. Just tell me ahead of time, okay? This thing doesn't have a wire connection and it has Broadcom. Those are the two bugaboos. I knew it was going to fail on Broadcom. That was fine. I expected that. I did not expect it not to fail the UEFI installation. I was told that it will work fine on legacy boot. This doesn't have legacy boot. I've got 2 machines now that don't have legacy boot. This is coming. This is here, guys. UEFI is how it's going to be. And honestly, I don't install anything on MBRs anymore because it's a pain in the butt. UEFI is so much easier once you get used to it. Not in having the stuff on the ISO and not being able to connect to the internet because I don't have Broadcom, because there was no Broadcom drivers that worked with this laptop, meant that I could not install it. So it took a while to install. Mostly because I went to Ubuntu. I couldn't figure out where to download the drivers from. There's 14 repos on Farron's ISO, on the Cinnamon ISO. There's a lot. I didn't know where the Broadcom driver was supposed to come to. I eventually tracked them down, but and then the installation went through fine. One other item is I didn't get very much further. I like the themer. A lot of windows pop open, but I'm not going to talk about style. It worked. It did its thing. I was pretty happy with it. The other item that was a little strange for me was the I forgot. Oh, the partitioner. Somebody was talking about the partitioner failing, and you had to do your partitions ahead of time. It failed for me. It failed for me, but it failed in a different way. It did not offer the drive. I mean, it offered the drive, but it didn't offer all the cool options like the erase and the install alongside and all that stuff. All I had was a manual partition option. And I thought that has to be wrong because I know Calamari's installer has those other options in it. So I was fooling around with it, and this might not affect some of you guys, but anybody with a eMMC internal device, the Cinnamon desktop will automatically mount that thing when you boot up the Farron Live OS, and it doesn't unmount it when the installer tries to do its thing. And that's why it was failing on this machine. All I had to do was unmount the partition, restart the installer. Boom, Bob's your uncle. I could do whatever I wanted with it.
Now, is that something he can fix?
Yeah, it's a.
I assume that's upstream at Calamari's. I mean, Calamari's is a separate project.
He could probably set everything to unmount, but I don't before he starts the installer. But really, it should probably be part of Calamari's. He could probably
possibly
beginning.
Here's the other thing.
Modules.
Well, here's the other thing. Calamari's has a note on their website about swap and about having to disable something or other because otherwise, when you when the installer unmounts swap, systemd mounts the swap right back. It's in a generator. Now that you can turn off. You don't really need it if you're using FS tabs, but if you're not using FS tabs, I guess you kind of need it. But if you turn that off, then it won't fail when it formats swap, because the swap won't be when it swaps off and you go to format the partition, the dang thing grabs the swap back before systemd will grab the swap back and auto mount it again before it's ready to before it's reformatted. So I don't know if that's the problem. I know the Calamari's guys have some documentation on their website about that being an issue and how to configure your live systems to avoid it. I don't know if they've done anything inside the Calamares installer itself, but in the past they've said, well, here's what you disable to let that work. And I have disabled that in some test stuff I got rolling for MX, and that kind of thing does work. So maybe that will help. If you have the partition set up ahead of time, I'm guessing it doesn't format the swap again. This machine didn't have any swaps, so I didn't run into that particular problem with swap. I just let the auto installer do its thing. I actually didn't even see if it formatted any swap. I don't know. But I like Farron. He's fun to have around on the interwebs. He's an asset to the community. I didn't get a chance to play around a whole lot, but those are two things I think he can fix with his ISO. And he was helpful with me on Telegram. I was asking him some questions. He probably sees this coming because I asked him, does it have Broadcom on the thing? Do I have to be connected to the internet to install UEFI? I already knew the answers, but he told me yes.
Yep.
So he, and to be fair, Peppermint had the same problem with Peppermint with the 9 respin a while back, and Mark Greaves and I actually kicked some stuff back and forth. I mean, I wasn't doing anything other than testing stuff and telling him what we do, and all of a sudden, Peppermint can do this now without an internet connection. So, I know it's possible. It might be something to look at in the future for him. Other than that, Cinnamon was fine. It was a little. This machine's a little underpowered for Cinnamon. It's the difference between hitting the button and the whisker menu popping right up on XFCE versus hitting the button and waiting 2 seconds for the Cinnamon menu to pop up. Just enough to be irritating, but that's the machine, not the OS. The OS itself was fine, and it was a lot of fun. I had a good time with it, and I've been meaning to try his stuff, and just finally got around to it.
Cool.
And that's me talking way too fast because I'm slightly over caffeinated.
You can never have too much caffeine.
Oh.
Dolphin, are you going to release the distro watch bot on GitHub anytime soon?
I don't know anything about a bot. I don't know anything about a hype machine. I know some people say, and Mark's almost as bad as I am. They say if you say our names 3 times, we just kind of show up on YouTube, and that's sort of true. It's less true for me these days because I have a new job, and they kind of frown on that kind of thing at work. But but I know it tends to be true. I pop into a feed, and mostly I just lurk on everybody's channel until y'all mention MX, and then I pipe in. I'm always there.
Yeah. So the MX bot is a sort of a fiction of people's imagination, a bit like Rocco's aimbot.
I'm just saying I don't know anything about it.
I don't either.
Whoa. That implies that the aimbot is fake. It's
I don't either.
Totally a thing.
I was gonna say I'm gonna argue that point.
Look, Distro Watch is fun, and it's and their list is fun, and they'll even say it's fun. And if you told me 2 years ago that we'd be in this top slot over Manjaro or Ubuntu or whatever, I'd have called you crazy. I thought we'd max out somewhere around 15. But at the same time, eventually you get this flavor of the month kind of thing happening on DW, where people eventually just get tired of clicking on Manjaro. And they click on something else. And this time they clicked on us.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, hopefully many years from now, someone will click on something else, and that'll be okay.
Many years from now.
Well, I'm enjoying it while it's
I approve.
And I seed Ubuntu and Fedora and OpenSUSE and all the other big boys, Debian and all the other big boys. I seed your leadership in the Linux sphere. And my RDW ranking of number one doesn't mean anything. But it's a heck of a motivator. And I'll tell you what, it drives a crap ton of traffic into the forum.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big spike when we got into the top 20. We had another big spike when we got in the top 10. Number one, it's just gone through the roof. And we've actually picked up 2 really active developer type guys here since then. So it's really helping. We got a lot of stuff going on. And so there is value in the DW list especially for a small project. Ubuntu doesn't care. They're canonical. They got a gazillion dollars. Fedora is owned by, one of the largest corporations on the planet. They don't probably care very much about the DW list. But you know what? Us little guys, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And this shirt, this is the Distro Watch Top 100 with a big penguin.
Yep.
I'm going to capture
the location
that
of
picture.
the location of the penguin's eyes is kind of not family friendly, in my opinion. But
Well, maybe a
Cool.
little. It's a penguin.
Yeah.
But that stuff's fun. So, if anybody wants the bot farmed out, just make a donation to MX and see what we can do.
I could use that
Oh, wait a
for.
minute. I'm not supposed to say that.
I
Sorry.
could use that for BigDaddyLinks.com. I could do that.
Are you a NASA shill? That's what I want to know.
NASA shill. I don't even know what that means. Isn't NASA going to the moon?
That's another part. It's another part of my life that we won't hear.
Mhm. All right. Well, the final.
I want to say.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
I said, Dolphin, I want to say that just to help you out, I have been going to on the distro watch, and I have been clicking on MX Linux just because.
I appreciate it. Sometimes I go and click on OpenSUSE just because the OBS system is so awesome. Keep
I
it
heard there
real.
was a bot that did that.
Really?
Yeah.
What's interesting is what I'm not sure about. They do the individual IP thing, but is that it clicks one click for each person? If that bot went through and just hit all 100 of them, then it would never change, right? I'm just saying, you bot programmers out there.
I talked to the distro watch people, and they said that they have many factors. It's not just page hits.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get back on topic. And Michael, have you tried Ferren?
I haven't tried it recently, no, but I have tried it in general. And I do like a lot of the stuff he's doing. And he's got a lot of custom stuff, especially like the modifications of implementing different innovative concepts in, like, even from other DEs, like the interface switcher that Monte and XFCE had, and put that in on Cinnamon and Plasma. Plasma has their own, but there's some issues with that. And I like some. So just overall, he does a lot of interesting stuff, and I like the fact that he's doing, finding a variety of bugs and testing out various different packages and trying to just throw things at the wall and see what works, and then also share that information with the community and back to Kubuntu so they can improve Kubuntu in various different ways. So it's really cool, and the fact that he's as young as he is and is only one person, it's actually don't to let him know, but it's very impressive. You don't want to give him a big head because that would be no.
So is that you being impressed with his time management and getting stuff out on time, etc.?
I don't understand what that question means.
We know.
Okay.
Yep.
It's only been 2 weeks, and I still have a video that I'm working on. It's almost done though.
So Michael is supposed to be painful.
So my question is, I ordered one of Michael's shirts. Will it be here in time for self?
Absolutely. If you did it in time, and I have nothing to do with it physically, if it was me shipping it, who knows?
If it was you shipping it, it might get there by the end of eternity.
That's being too generous, really.
Michael, you were not there for the Biddle Europe edition, but Eric Adams displayed a Linux is Everywhere t-shirt that he ordered. So you were there in spirit.
Someone wore one to.
I'm glad about that.
Someone wore one to DOS Geeks get together last week too.
Wasn't that you?
Yes.
Darkwing ordered one of your shirts when he had hair, and he's still waiting.
Nice.
Woo! All right, so
that's why I outsource.
Ferren has two versions, Ferren Next, and I guess what we would consider Ferren Classic. What do you guys think about, should he keep both, or should he choose one and continue on with one?
He should keep both until the Plasma one's finished, or ready to go fully. It doesn't have all the bugs, because the next part is it's kind of like a beta. So when he gets that to a polished state, then he should just switch to that one. And then, but in the meantime, have both, because the regular one is the Cinnamon, because it's already had a lot of work done on it.
It's definitely reliable. Anybody else?
I'd agree that especially for one guy, it's really easy to get burned out when you try to deploy every desktop on everything. And now he's only got 2 right now, but that's a vastly different base to be working on. And I would just rather see a really good KDE spin than 2 separate spins, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I want Ferren to stick around, I might give him a
I'm
little
torn because I love KDE and I love Cinnamon as well. So both of them are pretty awesome in my book. So,
I think we should just decide based on how many processor threads it can use.
Should we decide on that?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a
I
low.
think
That's a.
Well, what was interesting was Ferren said in the Europe chat that he was going to be keeping, he was going to be moving on and doing the KDE version as his main distro, but he would keep the what was it you called it again, Rocco?
The classic.
Yeah, keep the classic version going until Ubuntu dropped 32-bit support, and then he would just run with the one.
Makes
well,
sense.
he's probably got a lot of users invested in Cinnamon at the moment, so it might be a little bit hard for them to all move over to Plasma as well, isn't it? So that might be a bit of an issue for him. But,
I mean, I guess in a way, but all like that would just be a reason to stay with old technology, right? Like I don't think that's necessarily the reason to keep it, because he can't keep, like, it's not practical for one person to manage all that stuff. But I think that if you're going to build another DE and test out stuff, and he said that he's seen the benefits of Plasma and like the what he can do with it. And I think that's like a testament to Plasma itself, because if you can modify it to the degrees that he does, it's a great example of why they should move over. Because if he was to use it as a transition period, it's like, here's how long you have until you want to transition. If you don't want to transition, that's it. But you can go back to Mint if you wanted to or something. Because I'm pretty sure since it's based on Mint, you could just disable the Farron repos and then you have Mint again. That's how it seems like it could be. I can't guarantee that's how it works, but transitioning to Plasma would be, probably beneficial for them anyway, because there's going to be some issues when the 32-bit stuff stops. So that's going to be a problem for Mint, because I don't know, like they still have to upgrade some of their stuff to make that work.
I just assumed that there's a reason why he wanted to jump to this other one as his next platform, and he's not really looking to maintain class. I like the classic term. That's kind of cool. The classic term, the classic spin without.
Well, reading very briefly in a blog post, he put something to do with Linux Mint dropping Metacity.
Yes,
or
that's right.
Metacity or something.
He watched one of my videos, and I did a video on how Linux Mint will be dropping, and all the customizations they have as individuals in the Cinnamon desktop may change and go to the way GNOME handles everything. I'm not technical enough to be able to explain all that, but he said, that's it, I'm going to work on something else. He said, I think he commented on one of my videos, and that's when the Next came out and he started doing experimental stuff. So, and I was merely pointing out the fact that he has got a lot of users on Cinnamon, but I think it's a good idea he goes to Next and just focus on one as well. And I agree with you, Michael, actually, on that. But some people just find it, some users may just find it hard because it's not their type of desktop.
I mean, you could, as long as you have the layout from one to the other very similar, and how they're, the paradigm or whatever, the user experience, if it's very similar, then the transition should be that big a deal. They would have to learn a few new things, but overall it would be kind of the same.
The only thing I could say about that, Michael, I agreed with what you said initially, because he's got something established already. Like I said, I still would like to try that on real hardware, but the problem is it going to slow him down while he's working on the one he wants to transition to, or would he be better served to just put all his energy into?
I think he's putting most of his energy in that one. He's just doing like maintenance stuff on the Cinnamon one. So like it's still he's doing I think he said he's doing very little in terms of like feature building on Cinnamon. He's just doing like fixes and bug fixes and that kind of thing, whereas the majority of his work is on the Plasma version.
Okay.
And it shows too, because it's really working well at the moment, I must say.
There's a lot of cool concepts in it too. So like, I think there's a lot of potential for it. And I think that once he has, once he's able to focus on Plasma exclusively, and it gets to that point where it's like the production version, I think that's going to be like, it's going to show that there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that Ferren's got going for him, and I don't know if anybody else agrees, but I think his website, it might just, it's on Weebly, but hey, it's just a hosting site. I think he's done some really good stuff on there. I mean, how many one-man bands do you know that have actually got an advertisers or a news tab where you can go and download all his artwork and screenshots and stuff like that, so that you can write up your article and you don't even have to have it running. You can just grab stuff off of his website and write about it. So I think he's got a commercial mind on him as well for someone so young. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, he's got the press buttons and stuff. Like, that's interesting. So it's good that he does that, so that, like, and I like the fact that he, like, got rid of the Weebly part for the news, because it's now using Medium, and Medium is a good blogging platform. So it's nice that he's doing that. I think that's an interesting point, that he's taking in consideration, like, the branding and all that stuff as a necessity too. And it's also, like, there's things that I think a lot of distros have a problem with, is their website having no user experience demonstration, no video of how it looks when you're running it. And that's an unfortunate thing. And there's a lot of different demonstrations with screenshots and animation GIFs and stuff. And then also there's, like, a section for videos. So, like, I think that's quite impressive for someone to take that time to not only just build something good, but also build a website that has as much as possible. I mean, there could be some better organization overall, but I think that it is impressive how much effort has gone into even the website itself.
Well, you can look at FarronOS at farronos.org, but Michael, you said about his branding, and even the stuff in the system is branded for FarronOS, like the FarronOS store for software, and I think that's a detail that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, true.
That's a good point.
It's true that, yeah.
I think if you were to put a blindfold on and not know that it wasn't a team full of people, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know, Dan. You're absolutely right. You would never know that was done by one person.
And I like his bug reporting is good too. It's very easy and simple. So his bug reporting is really good.
As Eric said, there's a shortcut on the desktop for it.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, Dolphin is, if he wasn't a punk kid, it'd be much better though, right?
Wow.
He's all right.
All right, so there's our take on FarronOS. We just got to decide what we're going to try next.
That's a long time on that.
So I vote if there's going to be, like, a Fedora booth, or, I'm sure JT's going to be there. We do something like either Fedora 30, or we go the BSD route with Project Trident. And then
No, we're not going BSD. No BSD.
How do you know? As soon as you said JT, I was like, no, we're not. No.
I mean,
you guys can, but I'm not.
29, but I mean, I gotta put 30 on my systems at some point. So I mean, I'm not opposed to 30.
Well, let me just say that there are people in the chat, and Serge, I'm going to call you out. Sorry, but we continually take criticism because we consistently try Ubuntu-based versions, and we should probably try Slackware or Gentoo. But let me get a show of hands. If we did a Gentoo challenge, who would participate?
I would. Just to see what it was like.
Are we talking straight Gentoo?
Yeah,
straight Gentoo.
You wouldn't have it ready by next week.
So there would be 6 people that would try it.
Sorry, I got life.
Couple hours.
So what I'm saying is, I get, and there was a comment on one of the Biddle episodes about the same issue, that we're trying consistently the same type of distros, that all distros should get the popularity or the exposure or whatever you want to call it. But we also have to draw that fine line of, will people participate? Do people even want to hear about a BSD challenge or Gentoo challenge or anything like that? So you guys can suggest whatever you like, but we do need something for this week.
The other thing, look at the room as a mass here. How many really would use that, I guess, too? I get it with maybe trying something else, but the flavors that we pick tend to be more of what I think the masses would use.
Well,
how many people
that's you hit it on the head, Joe. That's exactly it. It's not just how many would participate, but how many people watching would actually get anything out of that. Like, half the people would tune out because they're never going to use anything like that.
Okay, so I think the best option really here is Linux from scratch.
Exactly, Michael. There we go.
Well, I was just going to suggest, what's the worst distro that to install and manage, and there we go. I mean,
No, I think that's probably Suicide Linux.
Rocco, if you're talking about attracting the general public to the Linux community, having the variety so that people know to come to BDLL to look to see if something was reviewed is probably a strong point, as far as attraction to general public. So the more variety that you provide, the more audience is going to be, coming to you for that advice, for those reviews.
Yeah, but Scott, when you think about it, though, right now, if you're bringing people here that you're holding their interest with what we're doing, and obviously there is, and then you put something on there, and maybe I'm a little wet behind the ears with this, but you don't want this to become a sleep aid for them either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we've done some
right.
distros. We've done some distros that are like front ends for Arch that make Arch easy.
Yeah.
There are a couple of distros out there that make Gentoo very easy, like Calculate.
Calculate, Savion, there's a few.
Yeah. So there are Gentoo spins that we could do that a normal user, or maybe a normal user, not a beginner, but a normal Linux user could very easily get by with.
You mean like Chrome OS a beginner would use?
Yeah, let's not use the Kopi suggestion.
Your 10-foot.
I class myself as a normal user, and Calculate pushes me to the limit.
Well, I was going to say, didn't everybody use Zeb and EB, and you guys are.
Yeah, and I've got an issue at the moment where I installed it. I worked out how to get it installed. I did all the updates and rebooted, and now I've got an NVIDIA issue. Now, for the developers to be able to try and look into that and fix it, I've got to provide all sorts of var log and system logs and dmessage logs, and why? Surely
Okay, I agree with you.
Should get
about Calculate. The one that I have used on occasion that I like, that I haven't really had a lot of issues with, is Red Core.
Yeah, you see, I couldn't even get Red Core to install.
What is Red Core based on? Is that
Gentoo?
It's
Gentoo.
Based on Gentoo, yeah.
All right, so look, this has been brought up a couple times. So here's your chance. If you would like to vote for something out of the ordinary, out of the norm, do it. What would you like to see us
I was going to say, Rocco, why are you looking at me for that?
I don't know why I would be looking for something from you out of the normal.
So we should totally just
How
make
about, I was going to say, if you're going to want to go completely oddball, go use like Nitrix or something, which it's deployed, it's not installed.
We're
it's
not
at the image.
insane, Matt. We're just trying to go out of the ordinary.
Nitrix is actually interesting. I would have suggested it, actually. I was going to until he rudely stole it from me. Nitrix is a distro that I'm pretty sure is based on Ubuntu. But the thing that's interesting about it is that it's Plasma, but they have their own version of Plasma. They didn't really fork it, but they've modified it so much that they've kind of called it a different it's like its own DE sort of thing, but it's still fundamentally Plasma. And they also have like this really high integration with app images. So it actually is pretty interesting.
Well, here's the thing. You're not going to be able to install it like a normal distro. It uses I was just reading up on it, and it's not installed, it's deployed, and the way they do it, I think, ZNX, I think. It is very weird on how it's done.
I mean, yeah, ZNX is a thing, sure, but I think that they have an option where you don't have to do that part.
No, because I just checked the FAQ.
All right, so we got a suggestion on Nitrix.
Okay, I was looking
Distro
at,
Watch.
Somebody had mentioned Red Core, and I'm on their website and I'm looking at it. And one of the first things they say, it says, like why? ? Red Core Linux shares the same idea as his defunct ancestor, its defunct ancestor, whatever Linux, to bring the power of Gentoo Linux to the masses. So their target audience is.
Did we not try Red Core at one time?
I have no idea.
We've done Red Core.
I could have sworn we tried Red Core at one time.
Yeah.
Let me go back and have a quick look.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we have.
Months, that's for sure.
I was looking down the list here on Distro Watch, and there's a lot of in the top 30. There are some we haven't done, and we've talked about Puppy Linux.
Puppy.
That would not.
You just made Prophetic's night by mentioning that.
I know.
Prophetic has been asking for it in the chat.
So
he's a good man.
He asks every week.
There's also, I mean, have we done Zoran? Is that one we've done? I don't recall that one.
But it's Ubuntu based.
That's Ubuntu based. But the problem is we do a lot of variety. The variety just happens to be Ubuntu based. There's a lot of variety on Ubuntu based.
Yeah, but you say that. But
I mean, we've been on you guys have been doing Ubuntu base for what, the last 2 months, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been pretty much every Ubuntu flavor plus.
Yeah, but that was part of the by design. I mean, that was when we were trying to do Ubuntu and Kubuntu and all that.
Right.
Okay, I'm just going to be really honest. Well, here's the problem. When most distros, regardless of whether or not they're on DistroWatch or not, are based on either Debian or Ubuntu, that's just reality. So it's going to be a majority.
So,
and unfortunately, those are the ones that most people are going to be thrown to if they get thrown elementary or Ubuntu or take your pick, because we represent a weird cross section of Linux users. Some of us are devs, some of us are just generic end users, some of us just want our stuff to work.
I think it's about darn time that Prophetic gets.
You mentioned Puppy Linux, and there he is.
Puppy Linux man.
Let the dogs out.
Somebody rubbed the genie bottle, and there he is.
So I just thought of something else. You know, this is still Ubuntu based, but Emma is going to be at Southeast Linux Fest next weekend. So if we want to bug her about Pop OS,
hey, I'm running Pop OS right now. Just saying, throwing it out there.
We reviewed it, I thought, at one point.
We did Pop OS in November of last year.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well,
And I
Pop OS
can't-
begins with a P, and so does Puppy. So I think Puppy is the way to go.
Yeah. And I can't.
That logic is very
No
sound.
partiality here.
I can't see that we've ever done Zorin OS.
Is there a kitty Linux we could give for Barbara?
There isn't one.
Look,
There's Dragonfly though.
Why don't we get
Dragonfly
one
is
of the other ones
Yes.
out of the
What?
way and
Dragonfly's
try
a
it?
BSD.
Oh, forget that.
Guys,
Not everybody all at once.
Hey.
Sorry, what was you saying?
Hey, Rocco, you want to talk?
How about we try one of the Gen 2 or Slackware something or others and just try it? How
Is
about
there
we
a
do that?
Slackware based like one of
Salix.
Slack
works quite well.
was
There's
another one.
There's a Slacko puppy.
Is there a puppy?
There's a Slackware
Slackware
puppy.
itself is 32 on DistroWatch. It's in the top 50.
What is?
Slackware is 32 on DistroWatch.
I mean,
Yeah,
Slackware is the oldest distribution of
That's the
all of
first one I ever used.
Yeah, and that's going to be really hard to install.
95 or so.
Yeah.
It's a toughie.
It's good, and it's legacy wise, it's fantastic, but it's not there's a requirement of type of person to use it, and I think that there's the more likelihood is something that is based on it. And is Salix still based on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about ZenWalks? That's still around?
Yes, that is still around. I just checked. The latest blog post from them is from a week ago, pretty much.
I mean, they got a rockin' icon for their.
Oh my god! Imagine we do Ultimate OS.
No, that's a
Talk
bullshit.
about doing something totally off the wall. You never did Kali, Tails, or Black Arch, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying we've
PC Linux OS.
I mean, those are
Granted,
Ubuntu
next
based, so
week-
that's an option.
Granted, still for the next week, I still vote for something that's going to have someone at Self just for the whole novelty of it.
It would be pretty cool to have somebody there talking about it.
And just
Would be-
trash them in person.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
trash them.
The problem is we did Fedora back in March.
Yeah.
I think you're missing out on an opportunity here. You could have everyone show up next week with an elevator pitch for what the next distro could be.
Well,
the puppy
Rocco, you
revolution
need a
here.
big- there's what 100 different flavors of Linux. You just need a big wheel you can spin.
I don't have a wheel.
300 and something on different.
Wheel of Misfortune. Spin, spin, spin.
Here's something unique then. So next week is Self. So why don't you pick the Linux distribution yourself?
The one you want to talk about.
This is interesting. You could pick one point from the distribution that makes it different from all the others.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't want to.
What do you call it? What's its point of view?
The Hannah Montana theme just drew me in. I couldn't resist.
Michael,
I think that's a great
I
idea.
was going to mention Hannah Montana, but that's Ubuntu based. So
How about we just have a free week where everybody uses what they want to use and try what they want to try, and then we'll get together and we'll talk about it.
Rocco, I would probably recommend come up with 1 point so we can at least get through the conversation.
Well, Michael won't be there, so we won't have a problem with people talking too much.
You're right. I will not be here.
Well, we can all have our own
They're
Discord.
live,
We can
so-
argue about whether it's single click or double click.
Single click is obviously the win.
I agree.
Dave, just
Except
saying.
for by default.
And low latency kernels.
Michael, I asked Big Pod. He didn't have an answer for me. When you get in your car, do you pull the handle twice?
That's an easy one. That's easy.
Depending on what's happening.
personal problem.
Your car.
I mean, if I want to get in somewhere, I don't
brake in order to drive. What?
I don't open the door twice. I just open it once.
I do pick up.
Guys, free for
Here's the
I got one.
When you first show a child the door, do they have to you have to explain how the door opens, right? So why would you want to say then someone who's never used Linux before instead of just say here's the engine of the car, figure it out?
Michael, how many times in the Linux community do we say come over to Linux because Linux is better? Why would you not want to show them the better way rather than the old way?
Because then they'd click once
and they would get into a folder where they expected to go.
Right. So yeah, of course, when they select a file and they meant to click it and click another one, and all of a sudden it starts opening.
How many normal users do you know select folders on a regular basis? I'm not talking you guys because I don't consider you guys a normal user.
Are you kidding me?
I am
Majority of people. What are you talking about?
I am talking a normal.
Literally opens 12 different Adobe Reader files every time he clicks an icon because his desktop is set up to be single click. And this thing, he goes click, 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 click. There's thousands of them on his screen by the time he's done. And then he closes them all before he opens another file, which also drives me crazy. But I digress.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll answer your car analogy.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you unlock the door first, and then you pull the handle. So you've clicked twice.
That's way better.
No.
Good job.
Yeah. And also the analogy of opening a car door and double clicking has got to be the single worst
analogy.
And well, no, it's like,
so good.
Single click is best because I only open a car door once. Really? Is that
it's
all
so
you've
good.
got?
So, and if we're talking unlocking the doors, in any car remote that I've had to tap the unlock button twice to get all the passenger doors open as well.
The passenger doors, but not the driver door.
Entry, so I
don't even have. Don't get it confused.
And open it. So
okay, Zeb.
There you go.
Zeb, how about this one? When I'm cooking my eggs for breakfast, I do not smack the egg shell against the side of the pan twice. I smack it once and put the egg in the pan.
You unlock it and then you open it by breaking
you just
it.
open it by clicking
That's
it
twice.
once. That's what you do.
I have to crack it twice because the first one goes all over the cooker. The second one goes in the pan.
rather than the right.
You guys are so superficial for having a conversation about single click or double click.
This is your fault, Rocco. You brought up double click this week.
Let's talk about what really matters. Okay, so Rocco, Max
Go on, Joe. You can go to the toilet, mate. You're fine.
I regret all of this.
I was waiting to kind of pry my way into the line here. No, when you're talking about for next week, if everybody picks their own, is it in one breath the one that you're on and most familiar with, or do we do a caveat to that where something else that you'd be willing to try?
It doesn't matter.
Something else you'd be willing to try.
I think it should be pick something else.
It doesn't really matter. If it's something you're running and you love it, tell us about it.
Kevin had an interesting suggestion.
What's that?
How and why we use our systems.
There you go.
That's what the 3 weeks all about. Use what you want and tell us about it. Why you think it's great.
There you go.
Now I've got a problem. I can't run Peppermint and MX at the same time, so I'm stuffed.
You know, that's a great way to attract folks anyway to the Linux community. So if you've got your favorite, you know, just run it to the max and just bring all the great points to it so people can hear what's great about something.
Slack
They may
words.
try.
Well, Zeb, you can run both. You run Peppermint and then run in MX in a VM.
Yeah, but then I'd want to run MX and Peppermint in a VM because they've both got fantastic things going for them.
Just
See,
run
I run three. I've got Pop OS on one drive in here, but I tend to be on Mint all the time and Peppermint in the other room, and Pop OS is more of a backup for me to jump in and trying to actually kind of wrap my head around the GNOME thing because I've gotten a little biased with it with things, but I think it's a really awesome OS. So if you've got at least two that I actually run two every day. I'm in one part of the day, I'm working on that one, and I'm on Mint in this one. So I mean.
So I got an idea. Run a poll and have the community decide which one you're going to run before you fly out for Southeast Linux Fest.
No, we're not running no poll because that ends bad. That ends bad.
Well, Crispy, MX, and Peppermint.
I already know mine. Puppy runs on root by default.
Right?
Boom. There it is.
Is it single click or double click?
The single.
Okay.
Can I bring up?
I don't know if that's a Mark IV single click or a Mark against single click.
I'll tell you what, though, I'd love to get
considering it runs by root by default, it's
to help.
good for.
Can I bring
Thanks,
up the
Seb.
point I meant earlier today, Rocco, when I was talking on the European?
No, absolutely not. It's off limits, Joe.
I had an incident, and I'm saying this more for the people in the chat too, that something to think about, because so often the distros get blamed for breaking all the time or things like that, and I was having a problem with it. Seemed like no matter what distro I put on my little ASRock Mini workstation back there, it was freezing, and I've had the same thing with Mint, and you see a lot of threads on it, and we always want to blame the distros, and what I had come across on here is I thought, let me look at the BIOS, because we never think about the BIOS, and realistically, if the thought is if it's running fine, leave it alone, unless there's a security update or something like that. Well, when I look in this BIOS, there's one or two updates that don't show anything that's of any relevance that's worth doing. But on that one, I was on 1.5 was the BIOS release. The latest one was 8.10. So I have updated it to that, and so far, knock on wood, I have had no issues. So my point is I guess don't always assume that distro is the problem. It could very well be a hardware issue or something like that most people don't think about.
I like blaming the distro maker.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
just
it's the
kidding.
same
I'm just
situation.
kidding. You're right.
It's the same
You're
situation
right,
with the installer with Farron OS this week. Many people had problems with the installer. Some of them worked around it, some of them didn't. But that problem isn't specific to Farron, and it really has nothing to do with Farron OS. It just happens to be with the specific version of the installer that he's using. So it goes along with the same point.
Yeah, and they might not all like the same hardware, and that's part of the problem here is because you got a distro that's where it comes back to the point we've talked about in the past is, do you narrow down that we've got, it's wonderful to have all these choices, but if there's one or two or maybe three core ones out there that they focus on everything that's tested with the hardware, then you're going to have less problems. It's like coming back to the System 76s and the Dells that are now releasing, Linux compatible and that kind of thing. It's because they're testing with the hardware. But when you're trying to take a distro, whether it's whatever we're using here, and you're putting it on 10 different machines, it's like the analogy I meant earlier. If somebody has a disability, if you could put 10 people in those room with the same, let's say if it's, God forbid, if it's MS or something like that, each person is going to be affected differently. And it's no different with the hardware in here. The distro is going to act differently on different hardware, whether it's the age, whether it's the type of hardware or whatever. So unless you have something that's specifically tested to be working with this and the manufacturers are working with you on it, you're always going to have this battle. I don't ever see it ending. I mean,
Well, it's incredible that we get this far with the distros that we have. Despite that, I think it's incredible that we have that. But a quick question I want to pose to the group, if possible, is imagine a world where Farron OS is not really so much an OS, but what if he was given the reins to head up a desktop environment tweaking? Like imagine Farron OS heading up Lubuntu and being able to tink and twinker with all those things. Like what if collaboration looks like that? I mean, I think it's kind of amazing that MX has this relationship with Antix, and it's just pretty cool. Like, what if we see that a little bit more, so he could focus even more so? I mean, it's incredible he has this much ability with the limited time that he has.
Or if he became the official Ubuntu Cinnamon version.
Or even stuff like that. Like where I mean, what about the Yaru?
You mean Cinnabuntu?
Yeah, no, Farron OS.
Ubuntu.
What was that community theme that was very popular called for Ubuntu? Yaru or
no? There was the community theme. It was actually called Communa theme, and they changed it into the Yaru and then the Suru icons.
Okay, so one of the things I learned when I first installed that, at least when it was still called Yaru, was that I had to log out and then log in a Yaru session. What if they can do something similar with those types of like integrations where you have any Ubuntu or Debian base and you install the Farron environment and then boom, you're sitting, not even installing an ISO, reinstalling hard drives, all that stuff. What would that look like? I was kind of posing it out there. Like, is that possible? And if so, is it worth its while? Because it takes a lot to do this.
Well, there's a couple things. It's kind of like the Ubuntu Studio installer that's out there for the flavors. Basically puts all the Ubuntu Studio bits on top of whatever DE you're running. So something like that, Prophetic?
Yeah. With that, is that the next level of being efficient and effective? Because these one-man shops are inspiring. They're beautiful. They're awesome, and they take us somewhere that we've never been before. But at the same time, for longevity's sake, we've seen this song play out in the end.
Well, that is the one downside to having a one-man show is where if that person, for whatever reasons, decides to not do it anymore, you're pretty much out of a distro. So I think it would be awesome if somehow there could be some collaboration or expansion between collaboration, I guess would be the better word, between an Ubuntu and, say, Farron OS or something to that effect. I think that'd be awesome.
Well, I could say we have some of that right now because Farron is actually one of the contributors to Calamares, and we're pulling that in. So he's contributing upstream, which is getting out to other distros.
He's contributing to Ubuntu as well.
Oh, I meant more holistically. Holistically, though, like in a cohesive, like final product.
That's a harder thing to do because you're talking about like taking someone who is doing something that's innovative but also experimental, and having them in position to decide what things to be done on something that's already been, in production for years, and then is trying to, take that over, and that would just create too much of a conflict. With the
well, plus you wouldn't want to stifle his artistic ability because really it is.
You would be
artistic, his representation of it. And
if he took over Kubuntu, there was no way he'd be able to do all the stuff that Kubuntu that he was doing in Farron, because Kubuntu and Lubuntu have you're limited in how you are approaching it because you're trying to be a production ready thing, so you can only go so far on certain things.
They've got different goals, haven't they? Really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So how was Yaru able to do it where you log out and then log back in? And
because Yaru was created by Canonical, and it was the thing to be replacing the existing setup. So they were doing that for the purpose of like replacing the entire shell stuff. So that it was you were changing your session, but like you could change a theme and not have to change a session. But they were changing the theme, they were changing the icon set, they're changing the way all the extensions that were running inside of it. So you had to do a different session because they're changing so much. But now if you just run Ubuntu by default, you already have the Yaru thing.
All right, so it has to be highly targeted, and that highly target nature has to come in-house to make it work.
It's just because you could do that technically. Yeah, you can create your own session if you wanted to, but that session would need to be running on GNOME. Like if you wanted to do like build your own distro and do that, you'd have to start like very limited what you can do, because they just change the themes and the icons and stuff, but you can't change the DE and for example and have that solution because you would be changing way too
messy.
Yeah, and especially with GNOME, because while some people like GNOME, and I get that, GNOME is the notorious one for not being compatible with anything. Like if you install any other DE alongside GNOME, you are lucky if it works. And in some cases, the only times it'll work is if it's like a fork of an older version of GNOME. Like Mate probably will work. Cinnamon,
I don't know. I have had the exact opposite experience in that area.
Yeah.
Like
I've been lucky for a long time.
The only problem that I have to resolve when I install another DE alongside of GNOME is the window manager, or not the window manager, the login session. That's it. The greeting. That's it. Once I resolve that, everything works fine. Whether that's Cinnamon, Mate, XFCE, or whatever. The one distro that I find, and honestly, I love KDE, but KDE and other desktop environments don't play well together, being installed on the same system. That's my experience.
KDE and LXQ play fine together.
Correct. And none other.
I was going to say,
yeah, we do.
When I did that GNOME experiment,
GTK is notorious for not caring about anything other than themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, of course, they're not going to be compatible with anything other than GTK. I said that you'd have a good option if you installed Mate or Cinnamon because they're GTK. That's the only reason those would work, is because they're using the same toolkit. You put anything else in that's not the same toolkit, almost guaranteed.
But you have multiple choices of ones that are using the same toolkit, is what I'm telling you. So, like, the majority of desktop environments you can run alongside of GNOME. Go ahead, Big Pod.
That's just because people make bad decisions.
Hold on, Michael.
To use.
On my system, I have KDE, GNOME, XFC, OpenBox, Qtile, Cinnamon, Mate, and a couple others all installed, all work play. I can use whatever. I just need to log out of current session and change the session.
Yeah, all of those
GTK. Are you on Arch?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I will go back to Steve. Go ahead, Chris.
Same works on anything.
Chris, go ahead.
It's just all GTK anyway.
I had Barry's experience, but
I've been able to use different DEs with Fedora without a problem, side by side. The only thing that I found was that when I went to XCFE, I believe it was, it was XCDE, it didn't want to read the user file and will let you log on without typing in a password or not recognize changed password or anything like that. And it wasn't until I found like DM that I fixed that. But I mean, I've always been able to have other DEs run side by side, not concurrently, obviously, because I mean I'm still dealing with the single user interface.
Well, let's. I just want to verify something or clarify something that Prophetic is saying. The question is not whether or not you can install a DE and it would work. The question is, can you install a DE, modify it, and have a certain session, and you can ship that as a deployment feature? No. That part you can't.
Don't laugh. But what if you snapped it?
then absolutely not. Then absolutely not.
Well, I mean, technically, it could be possible. You can do that. I don't know why you'd want to, but you probably could.
Going back to our friend Steve from the community who sends emails in every week. And by the way, Steve, that email was awesome. It took me all week to read that email, but it was awesome. But I said before, he has talked about the fact that he is able to install desktop environments beside each other without any issues once, but only the vanilla versions. No, he has installed KDE alongside of GNOME, but by the vanilla versions of doing it that way. So if he installs Ubuntu, he has to remove the Ubuntu version basically and install the vanilla version of it, and then he can install any other vanilla DE alongside of it.
Right. If you go GNOME first, GNOME is like the Windows for DEs. If you install something and then install Windows, it breaks. If you install GNOME and then install something, it's probably okay. If you install something and then install GNOME,
such a GNOME hater. Like,
it's not my fault that they do this.
So
because they pay attention to their own thing and don't care about being compatible with other things. That's all I'm saying.
So my biggest issue with installing multiple DEs side by side is each one will come with its own set of default applications, and you just end up with all this clutter that you may not necessarily want.
depends on how you install it. Because if you do like Kubuntu desktop, then yeah. But if you do a variation that only does the basic essentials, it really comes down to what you input.
If you do just a session or a shell, it will install just the DE and not everything around it. Basically,
the difficulty with that
must not install the group.
It depends on how integrated the applications are into the environment. Like file managers tend to be a bit more integrated than, let's say, an image viewer or something.
Well, you might not have
difficulty with that though. Is trying to find in the repo. Do you use KDE-desktop-all, or do you just use KDE something? You know, they don't provide very good documentation as to if you install this, you'll get that. If you install this, you'll get that. If you install this, you'll get everything in the kitchen.
It's almost, and with KDE, it's almost always Plasma Desktop.
Actually, I believe the one place that does do that is the Arch Wiki.
There are some variations of that.
The Arch Wiki will tell you all of the commands of what will install when you do KDE-desktop, all of them. So that is a place where you could find that info.
For Arch users, yeah.
Is it written in there?
It's not going to be compatible with other
No, what I'm
distros.
saying is the desktop, it will tell you what the package is going to install. So not all commands on Arch are going to be compatible with Ubuntu, but what I'm saying is by that variation, you will see what KDE-desktop will install. Will install full-blown KDE, will install minimal, will install whatever. It will list
I've seen it. I've seen it in Kubuntu too, or variations.
Yeah, but the listing is only for
Ubuntu-based.
Arch, is what they decide that those packages will install.
Yeah.
You'd have to look at the dependencies that are on Ubuntu or Debian or whatever, and you can do that. There's a way to do that too. Like even if you want to pull up Synaptic or Muon or whatever, you can
search
look
for
at
it. Yeah. So in summation,
I just want to throw out there,
if it's a snap, especially even more so, and I guess a lot of people have been very lucky who've done it and got away with it.
Did I mention that?
You're fine.
Did I mention that Self
you
is in 5 days, 9 hours, 2 minutes, and 45 seconds?
Yeah.
It's show is
I did want to
almost over
mention
3 minutes, so we should probably get started on.
You're right, Bob. But Michael was talking, so it never ends.
The multiple DE thing.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for Arch, but the multiple DE thing, I know I've had trouble with it on Ubuntu based, but I've never had any trouble with multiple desktop environments in OpenSUSE. They all play well together because I think it's because of the build service and how they make sure everything works together when they kick it out. So if it's if it's official, when they kick it out, it just works.
Surprise. Don't they ship typically just like the vanilla stuff anyway?
Typical from Nate.
Yes.
I thought it was because that they all work together.
See,
Yeah,
I
they all
think
work.
what Mike just said is the key there, in that the ones that ship the vanilla stuff, you're probably less likely to get problems. You'll notice Debian also ships the vanilla desktop flavors. They only really do anything with the GNOME.
I'm doing 2 out of 3 machines have multiple desktops and I have no problem.
I know you had GNOME on top of MX at one point. I remember you talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a
Why
video
would
of
you
it.
do that to yourself?
You know what? Tell him, Dolphin.
It's not even about doing it to himself; it's doing it to the MX.
Dave, tell him.
Actually, he turned me onto it. It was actually kind of fun. I went back. I couldn't keep it, but it was fun for a while to use. But the only desktop we customize in MX is the XFCE one. Everything else is just comes out of the Debian repositories, whatever it is. Even if we compile the stuff ourselves, I think we might have Cinnamon and a later Mate in the repo. I don't remember. But even those are generic vanilla. We don't have any customizations, and that kind of thing tends to work pretty good. I used to run into problems with file managers taking over desktops. You crack open Nemo or Kaja or one of those, and everybody wanted to fight for the desktop. But most of that's gone now. They've kind of sorted that stuff out.
To be fair, GNOME on MX is obviously an older version, but man, that baby flies. I would dare say it's faster than the latest version of GNOME. But man, when it hangs, there's no return.
There is a benefit with sticking with software that's 2 years older than everybody else's.
Yeah.
It tends to run
kind of
fast.
But it was super. I was like impressed and surprised. But it hanged and went right back to.
And speaking
All
of
right.
flying, This time flew by, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
And the
this
transition
time
of the
is
year is-
over.
Well done.
All right.
There's no perfect timing.
We will be at Self next week. A few of us will be there. So the plan is that Biddle will still go on next week, hopefully with Dan's help.
The show will go on.
And then the plan will be me and Zeb and whoever else is down there will join from down there as Dan does the hard work. So there you go.
I'll give it a whirl.
All right, last word, Zeb.
I'm really looking forward to Self next week. It's only 4 days, 1 hour and 59 minutes before I have to climb onto the plane. So I'm really, really getting excited about meeting everybody that's going to be there in the flesh instead of just over this YouTube thing. As much fun as it is, you can't beat human interaction. So really looking forward to it. See everybody that's there who's going to be there.
Peter, last word.
I'm looking forward to Self as well, but 2020. So a 2020 vision.
What's the countdown on that?
2020 vision.
Well, that would be 1 year. Fuck, never mind.
Well, hey, hotel block's already open for that.
Dan, last word.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the show as always, and I hope everybody that goes to Self enjoys themselves, and look forward to next week.
Vash, last word.
Yeah, thanks for the stream, and we'll see what distro I end up trying to pick for this week. It'll be different.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a new one. It could be what you run normally. Just tell us about what you like about it.
I understand.
All right, Tyler, last word.
Looking forward to Southeast Linux Fest. I just reinstalled Kubuntu on the Galago Pro because I redid my partition layout. So I guess I will talk about that next week.
Nice.
After I pass the ham radio exam.
All right.
You can do it. I know you can.
Over and out.
Adam, last word.
Thanks for the show. For those of you going to Self, have fun. I'll be there. I'll just make sure to meet me. I'm pretty big. It's easy to find me. I'll be the one with the iPad. So probably the only one there.
No, I don't think it'd be the
just look
only
for
one
that.
Tony, last word.
Tony?
No?
It's 4 o'clock. You may have fallen asleep.
All right, we'll try to get back to him. Chris, last word.
Let's see here. Zebra.
Yeah. Yep.
No, the just had a really good time tonight between finally trying to get Farron installed in this and not doing it successfully still. And so but other than that, everybody have a safe week. Remember, in the U.S., Father's Day is coming up in a couple weeks, and for ham radio operators out there, the field day is June 23rd, 24th, and hope to hear you guys on the air. And with that, people in the chat, smash that like button, and everybody have a good day.
Dave.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you all. And Zeb, I'm not sure who to pity more, the U.S. or you. But in the words of my youngest daughter's video game that she had when she was very small, avoid the other cars.
Colin, last word.
Okay, Rocco. All right, so it's pick your own distro this week, right? I went for a break. I think I missed that.
Yep, it is.
Okay, fair enough. I've been running Linux Mint Cinnamon for about 10, 11 months now. Been thinking about putting something else on my main system because I hop on other PCs. So I don't know if I've been watching too much drama in the last couple of weeks, but Linux Mint's got to go, Rocco.
Oh, here we go. We just can't avoid it. We just can't avoid it.
How much did they pay you to say that?
Wow. Just can't avoid it.
No, I'm only joking, Rocco. You know,
close.
But no, I want to jump on the main system. So it looks like Ubuntu Budgie I've been sort of looking at in the last, for a while now. So I want to give that a go. So I think I'll do that. See how we go with that. And thank you for the stream and the YouTube chat here or the Zoom chat. It's great. And you guys have awesome time itself. I wish we had a lot of other stuff that was close to home here, but unfortunately it's not. But I hope we can join up with you and hook up next week and have a really good chat and see what you are up to.
Yep.
So good luck with that, guys, and have a safe flight, Zeb.
All right. Matt, last word.
I expect trolling from anybody going to self to both Michael and Ryan.
We had the perfect troll going, but that won't work. So
yeah.
But if it don't work, you can go ahead and tell me.
No.
I'm gonna slap an Apple sticker on his laptop while he's not looking. So
No, you gotta throw a gnome sticker on Michael's laptop.
Yes.
No, Rocco, I always appreciate these shows that you do. It's great to have this kind of community, and I hope those that actually are going to self enjoy it. And I still expect trolling.
Okay, Nate, last word, brother.
Hey, thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. So it's good to see all of you. You're my family. I don't actually get to see on Christmas, and hope to see you next week.
All right, Kevin, last word.
Thanks for having me. The stream's been great. It's been nice talking to y'all, and I'll maybe see you next week.
Nice. Scott, last word, brother.
Oh, hey, Rocco, great show as always. Thanks for everybody coming along, and those in chat, thanks for coming to the show. I'm going to do some more testing on Farron OS. I think it deserves a nice, good, solid challenge. Everybody going to self, good luck with that. Have fun. Next week is Father's Day for us here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And since your show starts on Saturday, it's our Sunday. So I may not be here because of that guy.
Okay.
So I might miss a week, but yeah. Good luck with everybody on their distros, and I'll be looking forward to reviewing the show.
Nice.
Well,
just before you go to the next one, I found out what went wrong with Tony. He thinks that Farron OS might have mucked up his mic, so he just wanted to let everybody know double click for the win.
No, I believe, Zeb, you're wrong. I believe he actually said single click for the win. Thank you.
He did say single click. Zeb's lying. He's trying to run over more caravans.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, if we don't see you, Scott, happy Father's Day. All right, Joe, last word.
Thanks, mate. Everybody else, too. Sorry.
Well, yeah, as always, Rocco, thank you for the fun night and friends here. This has been really fabulous, and I do hope everybody here has a wonderful Father's Day. You know, I was thinking about something self, what those letters could stand for. Wouldn't it be wonderful because of the size of this community and how big we've gotten that if we could all just charter a jet and go to Southern Europe Linux Fest and surprise these guys and hang out in the pub with them or something? I mean, that would be awesome. Maybe next time it could be our turn. As you know, I'm not going to go in there, but I'm disappointed I can't be there but we'll be there through the screen as always, because I certainly am really looking forward to next week. I think that's going to be a real fun one. So,
yep. I agree.
Guys, have a great week. Stay safe. Safe flights. God bless.
All right, Zeb, start that GoFundMe.
So when you hit that lottery, Joe, you let me know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking you get enough people together, pool your money, maybe.
Pull your money, yeah. Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for watching. And while this weekend, for now, I still have Arch. By the end of the next week, I'm not so sure if Arch still be. Maybe I'll surprise you next week. We'll see.
There you go. There you have
Possibly
it.
myself, but I will choose.
There you have it. Tune in next week for Big Pod's decision.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, last word.
Rocco, Zeb, thank you. Everybody that's going to self, have a good time. And Dan, I feel so sorry for you.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Dan can handle it. Trust
yes,
me.
he can.
He can handle it. Steve, last word.
Thanks as always. It's great to have all this support. You guys are awesome. The room is awesome. Gnostic, I'm gonna smack you if I ever see you. but no, it's been great, guys. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Dolphin. Last word.
Well, you guys enjoy self. Rocco, thanks for the stream. And I won't be here next week, but I'll be running my favorite OS. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then, but I'll be in the woods, like getting my camping on, and with no internet, no nothing. It's going to be total unplug week. So, pray for me.
All right. Have fun with Linux Mint. Michael, last word.
Rocco, you mistake that. That's Windows.
So I'm looking forward to self and also dreading it a little bit because I have 2 talks that I'm giving, and I have 4 days until I give them, and I have 4 days until I write them.
And I will be there to troll you.
Someone make sure to offer him a Chromebook.
Or a Windows laptop.
Don't worry. This time I'm actually going to have a computer that will be compatible with the hardware that they're going to provide because Ryan's letting me borrow his.
Of course, it's going to be Ryan.
And just remember, Michael, you only have so much time to do your talks, too. Self only lasts, 4 days?
No, the last time I didn't go over it all because there was too much of a disaster for me to do that. This time.
Do you really need to have something written down, or?
Well, I will probably have an outline at least, but for the majority of the time, no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have like a script or anything, but I'll have at least an outline.
That outline can't last 4 days.
Okay.
Says you.
All right. Prophetic, last word.
It's great to be back. I missed you guys. And I want to say look forward to everyone's review of Puppy Linux next week. So
sounds good.
Thumbs up.
You wait for that.
It's going to be great.
Population 1.
It is the second best live system on the planet.
All right. That is it for us. We discussed Farron OS. If you want to check it out at farronos.org. Other than that, we will see you at Self next week. And hopefully everything will go on without a hitch. And hopefully. All right. Remember, long live Linux.
Yeah. Everybody have a good time at this.
Cheers, everyone.
See ya.
See yous.
Install Puppy.
Triple click for the win.
Stop, puppy.
Install Puppy.